Hi, Mike Parsons here from the North Shore of Oahu. Just going to give you a little rundown of what's been happening on the ASP World Tour. Well, the first half of the year, the Australians really kicked things off. You know, you had Taj really surfing well on the Gold Coast, winning that first event, but then, you know, Mick really hitting his stride in what was one of the best finals of the year against Kelly at Bells. I think Mick sort of set the pace. Judges were looking for that complete package, a lot of carving, big giant open face turns, and Mick had a new flair to his surfing. I think he really upped his game from previous years. So that was the early part, and then you had John in Brazil, you know, the beach break scenario where we all knew his first win was coming. It was just a matter of time. You know, the airs became more of a factor there, as well as barrel riding, so he really hit his stride. And then the South Pacific leg, you had Mick reemerge with an amazing final against Parko in Tahiti, but really the performance of the year that standed out for me was Kelly's win in Fiji. You know, you had the magic swell, and Kelly's performance on the forefin in that final, I think, was the best surfing we've seen all year, and really set the pace, and he really established himself again as the guy to beat. Well, Europe was interesting because it was all about tube riding. You know, barrels and errors is what Europe was kind of about. La Gravière and Super Tubes in Portugal, both those venues were real shore breaky, waves very close to the beach, and all about positioning, tube riding. We saw magic surfing from Kelly in France, and Parko and John. They were moving through the lineup, getting great tubes, really reading the conditions really well. And then, you know, Kelly had the slip up in Portugal in the early rounds. John looked very strong there as well. And Parko too, you know, really keeping pace and sort of establishing himself as the guy now coming into Hawaii. So the back half of the year, Parko really hitting his stride and kind of the man to beat right now. Steamer lane was really the big X factor. I think a lot of the surfers weren't prepared for what this wave's like there. It's a really tricky wave in terms of studying the lineup, figuring out what waves are good, because you have so many waves that fill up and go out to sea and they're really not very good, and then one wave will come through with a nice wall on it. And you saw a lot of local knowledge come into play with the guys up there. You saw Kelly almost lose in the first round to Rat Boy as a wild card, and he really had a tough time up there, although at moments he surfed really good. Parko looked like the informed surfer at Santa Cruz, but he was unable to win. In the early rounds, it looked like he was going to easily win that event, and he slipped up against Travis Logie. And now, you know, of course, that set up this fantastic showdown for Hawaii. Between, you know, really Kelly and Parko with Mick with an outside chance.
all
all going to come down to how they perform at pipe, you know, and we haven't had really any pipe days yet to speak of since those guys have been here. So I think everyone's on a pretty even playing field. Everyone's talking about only Kelly and Joel, but Mick, you know, he has to win the event, but he's one of the very best guys at pipe, and those guys could slip up. So I still say it's a three-man race. Gabriel Medina and John have really set the world on fire. I think those two guys are doing perhaps the biggest errors in surfing right now and landing them on the most consistent basis. John's basically incredible on everything he does, barrel riding, errors, and he's really improved dramatically on his open face stuff and carving. So he's established himself as a world title contender next year, like at the very top of the food chain. Medina, on the other hand, he's, I think, right there with him. That kid is just amazing at competing, winning contests. Whenever he's behind, he battles back. But I think Medina and John have kind of established themselves as world title contenders going into next year, no question about it. I think Parko's the guy to beat. It seems like he has the momentum and the underlying surge is kind of in Parko's favor. I think it's kind of his to lose. I mean, Kelly's the greatest surfer ever at Pipeline, but Parko's right there behind him. You know, finaling last year, he's a great tube rider. I think there's so much energy going towards Parko getting this title. I think the whole surfing world feels like he deserves it, but Kelly's the best ever out there and surfing the best of his life. So it's a great showdown. And then you got Mick kind of lurking with no pressure, and he's had a lot of success at pipe too. You know, you just get this feeling that it might be Parko's year.